Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding.
Hi, my name's Rick Robinson.
I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, entertainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama production, pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Say for sure you got the best monthly payment possible on your auto loan? Could it be that you might have gotten a better deal by shopping the loan at a few places and have a lower car payment? Next time, before you go car shopping, visit Communication Federal Credit Union first. Our auto loan experts will find you a perfect loan and get you the lowest monthly payment we can. Communication Federal, your auto loan experts. Restrictions apply. Federally insured by NCUA.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Dirt roads to the Capitol steps. Rick's calling truth, no time for regrets. Fire in his voice, facts in his hand, talking sense to the heart of this land.
And welcome in to the Monday edition of the Rick Robinson Show. I'm going to try this damn thing. Dude, I have been fighting the flu, bronchitis, COVID. Yeah, you name it. I've pretty much been exposed to it in the last few weeks, and my body finally said, okay, enough is enough. So, yeah, tons of antibiotics later, lots of sleep later, and I'm back. We're live. I'm here to try to do the full 2 hours, but I don't know if my voice is going to hold out that long. But there was so much I wanted to talk about on Friday, and then other things got in the way, and then by Friday night, I felt like crap again, and have for pretty much most of the weekend. But I woke up feeling pretty good today, so we're going to kick this thing off and start talking about all the stuff that matters. Start with stuff that we should have been talking about on Friday, but we couldn't because I was kind of out of it again. Anyway, hope everybody's having a great Monday. I know it's Monday. I'm sad about it being Monday too. Trust me, especially because now I'm legit trying to get back to work after being off and on for almost 2 weeks again in between being sick and everything else. But we're here, we're live, we're going to do this damn thing anyway. So first thing we got to talk about is Friday, some amazing things happened. And this is one of the reasons why I keep telling you most of America's modern day economists are dumb. So let's start with the economic data we got at the end of last week. So on Friday, the University of Michigan released its preliminary February consumer sentiment numbers. The index came in at 57.3%, up from 56.4 in January. Now, while that's the highest reading in about 6 months, it is a little bit below the national average for the last year. So, yeah, but still, So that tells us consumer confidence is modestly improving, not surging, not collapsing, just stabilizing a bit. More notable were inflation expectations. 1-year inflation expectations dropped to around 3.5%, down from roughly 4% projected for the last month. So, in simple terms, consumers expect inflation to cool somewhat over the next year, even if prices are still high right now. Now, I want to stop right there and talk about this for a second because we have to. Prices are high right now because they were in unsustainable territory for pretty much the entire time Biden was in office. The policies the Democrats put in place, the policies he enacted, did nothing but drive inflation higher and higher and higher. And I submit to you today, and have been now for a while, if we actually look at the true inflation numbers, we were probably sitting at closer to 26, 27% inflation under almost all of Biden's term. Now, again, just like happened with Reagan with the employment numbers, they started getting creative about things to pull out for the inflation numbers to keep people from panicking and making runs on the banks. Because again, we have primarily digital money now. Everybody's money is almost all ones and zeros. There isn't enough cash on hand to sustain everything. If everybody all of a sudden decided, well, the economy's bad enough, I'm going to pull my money out of the bank and go hide it under my mattress, like they tried to do in the Great Depression. So they started cooking the numbers, and people that understand the numbers are being cooked have kind of stayed quiet about it, other than some of us that have been jumping up and down, screaming and yelling, going, these aren't the real numbers. They're lying to you. But that's the importance of this number, is even with this being a cooked number, and I firmly believe that it is, because no administration, regardless of the letter behind their name, is going to give you a true snapshot of what our economy looks like if it's near free fall. And trust me, it is, and it has been for a long time. But that's been by design. So this administration is trying to fix that. Nobody seems to want to talk about the fact that if not for the fact that Donald Trump won in 2016, and again, as far as I'm concerned, in 2020, and again in 2024, even though 2020 didn't help us much because, the fix was in, whether anybody wants to admit it or not. But if not for that bifurcated presidential term, we would probably already be in free fall. And there are people in this country that want us in free fall, that need us in free fall. And that's part of the reason why they're as mad as they are that we aren't there yet. Now, one important thing to talk about with these numbers is we did not get the new CPI inflation data on Friday. The January inflation numbers are still scheduled for later this week because of the recent shutdown. Now, again, we're headed towards yet another shutdown, which is something else we're going to have to talk about here in a minute, because the left doesn't seem to know when to take a win. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest wins the left took away from the most recent threat of shutdown is now all CBP agents and all ICE agents are going to be wearing body cams. But now that this is happening, even though it's part of their Christmas wish list for keeping the government to shut down effective on Friday, now that all of this is happening and we're saying, okay, we're going to give them body cams, now the left is freaking out because what if the body cams are misused? What if they use the body cam footage to spy on people that are protesting? What if they do this? What if they do that? So again, in other words, you guys still just do not know how to take a win. Now, back to in gearing up for the shutdown, one of the biggest things that happened on Friday, because of these numbers that were much lower than everybody was expecting them to be, is we had the Dow break 50,000 for the first time in history. Now, it came close, and then eventually it broke it, and then it went back below it, and then it did eventually close. The last time I was looking at the numbers was about 100 points over 50,000. Now, that is a huge deal for the people that are investing in the stock market. The problem is we have a lot of folks who can't afford to invest in the stock market, and in a lot of cases, a lot of the folks that when the tariffs all started, everybody was like, "Oh my God, the stock market's going to crash." A lot of folks pulled out of their retirements and everything else and started rolling them into other things instead of being patient and waiting to see what happened. Now, I would like to point something out. At this point, this goes all the way back in history in the 80s, when the record high for the Dow was 1,000 points. This was around 1,000 points. Yes, you heard me right. This was around the same time that Republicans started saying we needed to be able to allow people to take some of their Social Security money and invest it into the stock market. Now, I need you to think about this for a second, because all of us that are listening to this program were probably alive in the 80s. A lot of us had already started working to a point where at least some of the money was being taken out, even if we were working first-time jobs. Now, imagine how that would have gone if starting in, say, 1989, even if 10% of your Social Security money was allowed to be invested into the stock market, starting with 1,000-point high all the way up to 50,000 points today, we would have people that were retiring as millionaires today. This is part of what with the Trump accounts Trump is trying to do, is get us to the point where people can retire and not be a burden on the system. Now, the problem with all of this is, and the reason that a lot of economists have poo-pooed this idea, is because if everybody becomes a millionaire, then money starts becoming more worthless. Because if everybody has a surplus of money, then the surplus of money doesn't mean anything anymore. This is another reason why I, for one, say economists are dumb. Because new millionaires are created every day. It doesn't do anything to impact the economy, other than suddenly people that are millionaires don't have to worry about having their hand out going back to the government saying, please, sir, may I have some more? And that's what I'm trying to get us away from. That's what I've been trying to get us away from for a long time. I want you guys to be financially solvent. I want you guys to build up your own corner of the world as best as you can, and then start working your way out if you choose to do so. But even if you do something just to shore up your part of the world and to make it as good as you can get it, then you've already taken some of the strain off of the system. So if we all start doing that, if we all start finding ways to make sure that come the end of our lifespan, whenever that may be, that we are not dependent upon our government, that we're not dependent upon those handouts, then we've already done something to alleviate some of the strain. And this is one of the reasons why I get so mad at everybody who just wants to do especially not necessarily everybody. Let me back up a second. But the ones that complain all the time about, I work 40 hours a week and I'm broke, and I do this and I'm broke, and I do that and I'm broke, then do something else. Start a hobby. Because eventually, if you push at it hard enough and that your hobby is something that you eventually want to be able to do for a living, you can find a way to make that happen. It's not going to be easy. And I tell people that all the time who have asked me, how it is that over the last 3 years, I've gone semi-retired and started doing this kind of work full time. And I'm going to tell you, it's a lot like starting a ministry. There are times when I am dependent upon the charity of others, which is why we have the QR code and everything else up there, so that people that want to keep this thing going can, by simply, investing a little bit of their treasure into what we're doing. Because while we do have some advertising and some sponsorships, I don't want to get them to the point where we're so beholden to them that they start telling me what we can and can't talk about and what we can and can't run on our network. Because I refuse to do that. I absolutely refuse to do that. But again, so if we go back into this week's consumer sentiment that was proven out for last week, that is improving. Inflation expectations are easing, markets are bullish, and the next inflation report will be the real test of whether that optimism holds. Because again, we aren't scheduled to get the actual CPI data until Friday. But with those two numbers coming in where they are, this is another good indication that everything the economists have been trying to tell us about Donald Trump's economy have been flat wrong. And he's taken everything that we've thought we understood about economics and turned it on its head. Because everything he's doing is working if we let him. And this is no different than his first term. On this network, because a lot of us were not bullish on Trump in the beginning, and some of the folks that work with me still aren't. I don't censor people's opinions. But one of the things that Ordnance J. Packard Esquire had coined a term for is he started calling Donald Trump the Leslie Nielsen of presidents, because he wasn't sure if he was managing to pull this stuff off because he actually knew what he was doing, or if he was just lucky enough that he could back into something sideways and it still wound up working for him. Now, whichever angle you feel like this is akin to, it doesn't really change the fact that everything the man is trying to do is actually working, to the point where we have people that are talking about us and talking to us that haven't talked to us in forever. And I see we got an Al sighting in the chat. Good morning, sir. How are you? I see we have a Denny sighting in the chat, and I see we have a Zelda sighting in the chat, although I have to look down to see her. Hang on. Yeah, there she is. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so anyway, sorry, had to be done. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for hanging out in the chat with me today, and yeah. No, you're not too young for this. You are the perfect age, Alcephus. You are the perfect age. But all right, so we got to talk about this before we take the first break. And I have to admit, I don't have very many notes prepared for today because I wasn't exactly sure how long my voice was going to hold out. But I definitely wanted to do a show. So it's not like there's not plenty of things to talk about one way or the other. Just maybe a little less noted and a little less organized than usual. Welcome to Stream of Consciousness Radio, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, all right. So the other thing we got to talk about, because it's one of the biggest news stories around right now, is this one. So Sunday night was the Super Bowl. I will be completely honest with you. I didn't watch it at all. Didn't have a dog in the fight. Don't really care one way or the other. Had no interest in seeing how badly Bad Bunny screwed everything up. But I feel like we still have to kind of talk about it anyway. So the game itself, everybody's. It's funny because I hear all the people that are, the sports talking heads and everything talking about how we've gotten spoiled because we've gotten really used to really close Super Bowl games and everything else. And then apparently last night was not one of those. I guess the Seahawks defense completely chewed up and sped out the Patriots, which doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I don't. That's every other year the same teams go back over and over and over again. I have no real interest in watching it anymore. And then the NFL keeps doing everything that it can to basically thumb its nose at the very people that pay their paychecks. So, of course, the halftime performance was headlined by Bad Bunny, and the reaction was immediate and loud, both inside the stadium and across social media. In the building, the crowd response was energetic and engaged, especially during the opening and guest appearances. Online reactions split fast. Plenty of fans praised the performance as high energy and culturally significant. Bullshit. While others were more critical of the style and the presentation. Either way, it dominated the conversation Sunday night and into Monday morning. Love it or not, it was one of those halftime shows that clearly cut through, became a talking point, and turned into a broader pop culture moment beyond just football. Did it, though? Did it really? This is where I take umbrage even with my own notes here, because I don't think that's what happened. I don't think that's what happened at all. As a matter of fact, from what I've been able to see, half the things that Bad Bunny was claiming he was going to do during the halftime show didn't even happen, which I consider a win for most normal folks, just being honest. All right, so we're going to take a quick break only because I gotta take care of some behind the scenes stuff. And like I said, I don't know how long the show's gonna run today. I'm gonna do my best to do the whole 2 hours, but I don't know how long my voice is gonna hold out. So that may or may not be possible. And besides, I still have an hour to do tonight too. So, but we are gonna take a break here in just a second as soon as I get it queued up to be able to do so. It's been a minute since I've played these things, so I gotta go find them. Hang on, I should have just pulled it from the other one, but you know what? I think I'm going to do that. Let's just do that. Hang on. All right, let's play. I don't know which one I want to play, though. All right, hang on. All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Maybe. Oh, wait. I know why. That's my fault. All right, let's try this again. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
He swore an oath to make a difference. Ran for danger while others turned away. Now it seems the world's against him. and no one knows quite what to say. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire, burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still stands. Won't lose the fight. He walked through fire with no applause, carried burdens that nobody saw, judgmental words and glares that wound. A price has been paid that few can understand. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire, burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still stands. Won't lose the fight. Maybe France was an armored war. Maybe it was the truth they chose to endure. When the world turned cold and he felt for more, he still rose to carry on. Live the life and follow the path forged in fire, burning bright through the darkest night. Though the world may turn its back on him, he still stands. Won't lose the fight. Backbone made in fire. Still alive. To every former but current member of law enforcement, thank you. I don't feel fear.
And welcome back into the program, ladies and gentlemen. And Denny, that actually something I'm kind of considering as we start to put out more content. So you never know. Anyway, so all right, so C-17's headed over to Iran. There has not been many since the Gulf War. This just before the meeting with them to discuss what will the leadership do. Look, Iran is backing itself into a corner. I hadn't planned on talking about this, but since Denny had brought it up in the chat room, Iran is painting itself into a corner, and it's gotten way too used to dealing with folks like Barack Obama and even to a lesser degree Bill Clinton and Joe Biden. So I don't think they know what to do with Trump because they're not used to somebody who actually, does what they say and say what they're gonna do. So they're used to basically just being able to kind of act like they're going to come off their chain a little bit and have us go, oh, wait, no, that's not happening with this one. So they could be in big trouble soon. They really could, in my opinion. But only time will tell. I also was kind of really surprised that we didn't just hit them with everything we had as soon as we had all of our assets in place. But then again, I'm not Secretary of War. I'm not the President of the United States, so I can sit here and armchair quarterback and Monday morning quarterback all I want to, but it doesn't change anything because, reasons. But anyway, all right. So that's just my quick take on everything that's been coming with Iran. I would be really surprised if there isn't something that happens fairly quickly. I don't know what it's going to look like when it does. But I have a feeling that Iran's going to be looking and going, what the hell just happened when we're done with them? But that's just my take on it. We'll find out together soon enough. All right. So before we went to break, we were talking about the Bad Bunny halftime show. So we have to talk about the TPUSA halftime show, which again, I didn't watch that one either. I'm going to be honest. I had planned on starting to spin things back up on Friday and then had some issues helping my roommate with some health stuff, and then was dealing with that for most of the day. And then by the time I was done with that, I was absolutely exhausted and kind of slept almost all the weekend because my body was still trying to fight off all these various different craps that I have been exposed to. So there is now a lot of folks have been talking about this, and there seems to be this idea that they believe the TP USA halftime show might have actually been bigger. I'm not exactly sure because from the numbers that I've been looking at, it looks like the estimated total viewership for the Bad Bunny halftime show was between 130 and 135 million viewers. That includes, of course, the NBC broadcast plus the global audience. So according to everything that I've been able to see, All American Halftime Show had about 4 to 6 million live viewers, with a peak of 5.7 million concurrent viewers. That includes live streams, YouTube, Rumble, etc. Now, of course, there have been thousands upon thousands upon thousands watching the replays. So I don't know what the final numbers look like, but I do want to say this. That's a pretty big dent, whether anybody wants to say it that way or not, being put into the halftime show viewership. So and again, whether you like the idea, whether you hate the idea, I think the fact that we are now starting to put together counter programming for the NFL, even if it's just for the halftime stuff, I think is a bigger deal than anybody wants to admit, because the NFL again has lost touch with the folks that brought it to the dance, so to speak. We have made the NFL everything that it is, and it's time, in my opinion, that we start using our wallets to detract from everything that it has become, especially if it isn't going to basically cater to the largest denominator anymore, because it's not. We have this idea now where the tyranny of the minority has been a thing for a long time, but the fact that it's now bled into our pop culture, where the loudest voices are the ones that are getting the most attention, and the ones that are screaming and yelling the loudest about not being represented properly, blah, 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 blah. Look, I understand, and I've talked about this for a long time, especially when it comes to TV shows and pop culture. I get it. There should be some representation of various different people in our TV shows. But the fact that you cannot turn one on anymore without finding some sort of person having some sort of identity crisis, whether it's being homosexual, whether it's being, transgender, whatever the case may be, is astounding to me, because these people make up such a small percentage of our population, but they are being represented way beyond scale because they've been the ones screaming and yelling the loudest, the longest about supposedly not being represented at all. And I have a problem with all of that. I really do. And that's just, I'm being honest about it. And I think that's part of why everybody was so turned off with Bad Bunny to begin with, because, his whole thing was, I'm going to do the entire pardon me. I'm going to do the entire show in a dress. Well, he didn't. Which, You figure it would have gotten some folks yelling and screaming at him. So far, I haven't been able to find any of that. But, what do I know? But yeah, so the news about this is not as big as anybody, I think, wanted it to be. But we're talking about, at one point, there were up to 6.2 million people watching the TP USA halftime show. I would kill for those kind of numbers just once. So congratulations, folks. You definitely made a dent, even if it wasn't, even if a lot of folks were hoping it was going to be bigger. All right, so let's see what other trouble we can get into. And I think I'm only going to do an hour for today, so I apologize, but I've already started trying to fight back more than one coughing fit, so I think an hour is going to be the length of what I can do today. All right, so we got to put this on the screen for a second. This is from Alex Cole. And I don't usually try to give folks like this very much attention, but in this instance, I kind of feel like he's earned a bit of, this is retarded. All right, so this is from Alex Cole's X account, and this is for, and I quote, "For all the MAGA folks that get confused, on the left, this is America, and on the right, this is USA." So first of all, I would like to point out that Alex Cole, while calling everybody else retarded, uses very terrible grammar. Because that is not America. That is the Americas, because that includes both North and South America, so it's both. That is the USA, as in the United States of America. And Alex, I have a question. What do people call people from our country? They call them Americans. So, yeah. Just wanted to take a moment to point out exactly how retarded you are and say thank you for giving me something to talk about for about 5 minutes on my show today. Because this is terrible. And second of all, this is without it drives me absolutely nuts. But anyway, I know I typo enough that I probably shouldn't be as much of a grammar Nazi as I am, but I can't help it. I can't help it. Anyway, so there was that. We had to talk about that. So let's see what other things we can get to real quick in the final 30 minutes or so of the program. Oh, so kind of surprised that Blaze is still covering it, because I know he's branched off and done his own thing called The Torch now. But apparently there is some breaking information regarding the Epstein story that Glenn covered. I think it was today. So let's take a look. According to a February 6th CBS News article, newly released Department of Justice documents show that investigators reviewing surveillance footage from the night of Jeffrey Epstein's death observed an orange-colored shape moving up a staircase towards the isolated locked tier where his cell was located. And this was approximately at 10:39 p.m. An observation CBS says that has gone previously unreported by authorities. In addition, the CBS reports that an FBI memorandum suggests that video footage reviews conducted by the FBI and other examiners led to disparate conclusions. The FBI logged the mysterious orange shape as possibly an inmate, while the Inspector General's report recorded it as an unidentified corrections officer carrying orange linen or bedding. Glenn Beck is reportedly sincerely puzzled by these FBI reports. Inmates at 10:30 at night are not going around in that area outside of their cells, so FBI, that doesn't make any sense, and that was a direct quote. Further, we now know the FBI knew that bedding is delivered the shift before this. No one is allowed on that floor at 10:39. He adds, even more shocking to Glenn is that then Attorney General Bill Barr publicly stated that no one entered Epstein's housing tier the night of his death, which was then reiterated by former FBI Director Dan Bongino last summer during a Fox and Friends interview. These statements are seemingly called into question by the revelations made by CBS. However, the most jaw-dropping revelation in the article says Glenn centers on shocking new details from corrections officers Tova Noel and Michael Thomas about the noose, or rather the lack of one, on the night Epstein reportedly took his own life. According to the article, records of Thomas' interview, which were released in the latest Epstein documents dump, indicate that he told investigators he discovered Epstein in his cell early on August 10 and that he ripped him down from the hanging position. However, when asked about the noose, Thomas could not recall taking off a noose. Noel, who reportedly was standing at the entrance of Epstein's cell at the time, told investigators that she did not see a noose either. The noose, reported to CBS, has never been definitively identified, and the one collected at the scene was later determined not to be the ligature used in Epstein's death. So, all right, and this is a quote from Glenn again. First, you had us believe that it was a paper noose. Now you're saying the paper noose that was found was not the noose that killed him. In fact, you can't find that noose. The paper noose and this one was later added to the scene by whom? He appears to be astounded that Epstein's death was ruled a suicide by the chief medical examiner just 6 days later, despite failure to identify the actual instrument that caused his death. So, and I quote again, you don't have the suicide weapon. The weapon that you do have, the noose, is not the noose that killed him. No explanation on how that arrived later at the scene. You have a blurry figure going up in the middle of the night, and you can't identify that individual, and yet you rule this a suicide. That's fascinating to me. Quote continues, I mean, there's just no way to square this circle. There's no way to do it. You cannot, with any credibility, say, yeah, this guy committed suicide. There's a reason why we don't believe the government. There's a reason, and it's this kind of crap. And I have to admit, that is something that I have been kind of struggling with, is the whole idea and concept that, supposedly this guy committed suicide while in some sort of a lockdown facility. With what? How? And why is there no proof of anything that was used? And this is just insanity to me. Complete insanity. And again, I just want to know what the truth is. Let us find out what the truth is. We can handle it. We're adults. This goes back to some of the things that I've been talking about for forever. The government has started doctoring the numbers that they give you because they're afraid if they tell you the truth about how bad our economy is or has been, it's going to cause a run on the banks. Again, at one point in Joe Biden's tenure, we were showing an inflation rate of about 10%. I guarantee you it was about 2 times, at least, if not 3 times that much at its peak. But they couldn't tell you that because that would have caused a run on the banks and it would have caused the depression. Which technically we were already in, by the way. Let's not forget, the Biden administration changed the legal definition of a depression not once but twice to fit the new numbers. And then they did everything they could to doctor those numbers to try to keep there from being a run on the banks. And again, all we want to know is the truth. I don't care what letter is behind their name if they've been caught up in this Epstein crap. I just want to know who they are so that we can run them out of town, because that's what deserves to happen to them. They don't deserve to be in positions of power anymore because, first of all, these never should have been positions of power in the first place. These were supposed to be positions of service. They have taken everything that our founding fathers wanted our country to be and turned it on its head. And we're now finding out exactly how bad that is and how long it's been going on, because we're now starting to find all the evidence of all the fraud that they were hoping that we were never going to be able to see. If you guys think it's only happening in Minneapolis, then you're not in Minnesota, then you're not paying attention. It's happening everywhere. These people have figured out the grift and the graft that the Obamas used and that the Clintons used and that the Bidens have used, and they have weaponized it. And they figured out how to use it at the local level. There's a reason that in Virginia, they are now trying to make it illegal for, things like this to be brought to light, whether it be election fraud or monetary fraud or anything of the sort. They're like, no, we don't need those kind of mechanisms here. But it makes you wonder why. To me, it makes me ask the question, why don't you want people to know what's going on? Because everybody should want to know these things. I mean, that's like everything that's come out with Ilhan Omar over the last few weeks. and the fact that her husband has this consulting firm that has absolutely no clients but is supposedly making millions of dollars. They have a winery that's supposedly making millions of dollars. One of the only points of sale we can find regarding any of the wine here at KLR Radio or anywhere else is a $7 bottle of wine. You guys realize how many of those bottles they would have to sell to make the millions of dollars that they're reporting? These people have taken our system and stolen it from us. And they're doing everything they can to hang on to it while they're doing it. They're fighting tooth and nail to keep me and you under thumb while doing everything they can to rip us off from the inside out. And we're supposed to be okay with it. Now, I don't like going too far down this particular rabbit hole, because then it does start shaping up to be an argument of the rich versus the rest. And I don't want to push that narrative either, because that starts sounding a lot like communist dogma. And for a lot of folks that have bought into that, whether you realize it or not, that's pretty much what you're pushing, is communist dogma, because the only end all and be all way to fix all of this, as far as they're concerned, is to tear it all down and start over. I don't believe that. Not only do I not believe that, I refuse to believe that, because this is still the best country on the planet, and anybody who doesn't think so is welcome to get the hell out. It really is that simple. It's just the truth of it, ladies and gentlemen. But I know I've been all over the place today, but it's because there's been so much to talk about, because I haven't done a show since not this past Friday, but the Friday before, because I started not to feel good again, which my doctor warned me this could happen, and I was stubborn and was like, no, I'll be fine. Yeah, the doctor was like, yeah, once this medicine starts working, you're going to feel crappy again for about a week or so. I'm used to being Superman. I'm not used to actually having to act my age. This week was one where I had to act my age, and was not a fan. Well, this past week, not a fan. So for those of you who are upset about juxtaposition, I apologize. As long as I continue this upward trajectory, we should have a makeup episode on Saturday. And I'm going to do my best to do as much of my work as possible this week. However, again, because my voice is scratchy as hell, we're going to cut this show a little bit short, because I do have to come back tonight. I want to be able to have a voice when I do that too. So anyway, let's see. What other breaking headlines do we have? Oh yeah. So, Ghislaine Maxwell testified in front of the House today. She pled the fifth, not surprising absolutely no one. But again, I will say this, for anybody who's never done any law enforcement work, pleading the fifth doesn't protect you as much as you think. It basically tells everybody that, yes, there's things that I don't want you to know, and I don't have to tell you. So, anyway, so I expect much the same when the Clintons testify. I think it's later this week or the following, when they're slated to testify. I expect there to be lots of pleading the fifth. All right, so we got to talk about this real quick. These two will kind of dovetail together. There is an Olympic competitor who is in some hot water right now for basically supposedly spelling out F-ice with his P. And everybody was kind of upset about that. Again, you are from America. You live in America. You have the right to express your opinion. I have the right to call you an asshole for expressing that opinion. So there we are. This is from Nick Arama, though, kind of in the same vein. Apparently, some folks have been having a little bit of fun with some anti-ice folks and doing a bit of trolling. So I think we've got a couple of different clips from that one. So hang on a second while I get those queued up. All right, so I guess I don't really understand what that clip was supposed to be about, so let's look at the article a little bit more. So the whole anti-ice thing is so unhinged. Perhaps one of the most twisted things about it is that they think they are on the right side of the equation. They are somehow fighting fascism, or whatever language that they're using this week, because they're attacking ICE. But it's ICE that is enforcing the law enacted by the representatives of the people. We wrote about, and this is from our friends over at Red State, how Blue Lives Matter was trolling them a bit on their accounts about whether they were calling in false ICE reports. There are other people also stepping up to do their part and have a little fun with them. Dustin Grage asked the question about the funding of the anti-ICE guys and where they were getting it from because of the supplies they were stocking up on at the Whipple Federal Building in Minneapolis. So this was pretty good when the guy went up to the supplies, grabbed a bunch of the stuff, and just left, laughing his head off. And I guess that's what the first clip was showing, was the supply stands. And then this clip shows dude having a little bit of fun with the folks in the at the supply stand. So here we go. And this one does have graphic language, by the way, apparently.
How's it?
Maybe.
How's it going?
Anything? I got hot chocolate hand warmers, hot coffee, tea.
Thank you so much.
I'm gonna warn you with those, the fruit snacks, keep them in your pocket for a little while, they're very hard.
Oh, they need to warm up.
Yeah, a little bit. I got hand warmers though down here.
Ooh, perfect. Thank you, yeah.
Actually, no, I think those are foot warmers. Those are hand warmers.
Okay, awesome. Also, I got the face mask. And, perfect. Awesome. Feel ready to go now. We'll go rally. Oh, shit. Just to piss him off. Just to piss him off. Just to piss him off. Oh God, I'm such a bitch. I'm such a bitch. I needed them. I wanted cookies. Where's the cookies? I got the whistles. I got the whistles.
Okay, I don't find that as funny as the author of the piece does, but whatever. All right, so so this is from Eric Doherty's X accounts where I pulled this from. So breaking, random Americans have begun to siphon away the paid anti-protesters' goods in Minnesota, pretending they're anti-ICE, but then enjoying the snacks and leaving just to piss them off. So yeah. So they also had at least one guy going around trying to trick the anti-ICE responders in Minneapolis by blowing whistles where ICE wasn't. Then, according to sister site from for Red State Town Hall, they reported on the guy who decided to test what he could get an anti-ICE protester to cheer. Again, haven't watched this yet, so we'll watch it together.
I was not planning on speaking, so thank you so much.
Hi. Give it up. Hello, everyone. How are we doing? Woo! Yes. All right. I am here today. My name is Charlie Wilcox, and all I have to say is that we are in a place that is the place. Yeah! Woo! Yeah! When I look at the uncooked salmon, I would love to eat the uncooked salmon! Yeah! When I have some pickled sphincter, I eat the pickled sphincter! Goodbye! Oh, yeah. What did I do wrong?
Okay. That one got me. I'm not going to lie. That one actually got me a little bit. Yes, it was retarded, but so is most of the crap these people are screaming at each other all the time anyway. So yeah. So we had to talk about that a little bit. All right, so let's see what other bit of news we can get into here real quick. So apparently, and this is from Amy Curtis, contributor to our weekend news roundup, and this came out earlier today. Is the Prime Minister of Great Britain going to resign soon? So here is a quick clip regarding the situation. This is from, it looks like GB News. So hang on.
Well, look, this is a government that is collapsing before our very eyes. The government is in open revolt against the Prime Minister, who now has no authority whatsoever. And what are people thinking? Whilst they're watching this government turning in on itself so quickly, just like the last Conservative government did, people are worried about their bills, their energy prices, jobs going, immigration continuing to be out of control, crime, town centres being hollowed out, all the challenges that the country faces. And yet this government is just focused in on itself, on a failed Prime Minister who's waiting to be shown the exit. We've got to move forward beyond this, because the public just deserves something so much better than having government after government collapse into chaos before their very eyes.
Robert, what happens next? That's the question. I mean, I think everyone would agree that Keir Starmer is a dead man walking, and it is only a matter of time. But who takes his place?
Well, look, who knows? Starmer looks like he's going to be on the way out. We're going to have a messy, chaotic Labour leadership contest that's going to waste precious time when the country faces all of these challenges. And then no doubt he'll be replaced by somebody who is just as inept, just as out of touch as he was, whether that's Angela Rayner or Wes Streeting. Who knows? Look, it's not for me to speculate. All I can say is that I've just spent the weekend in my constituency in Newark, and the public are not talking about Peter Mandelson. They knew he was a bad man and that he shouldn't have been made our premier ambassador in Washington. They just want a government that's going to grip the country's challenges. They're sick of the country being in decline like it is at the moment, and they want to move forward and actually get this country back onto its feet again with good jobs, with bills coming down, with immigration finally being tackled. And that is why Reform, the party that I've joined, has now got to focus on how do we prepare for government, because this could well lead to an early general election. And so Nigel, later today in Birmingham, is going to be setting out how are we going to start selecting candidates for the general election? Good, talented people of stature and integrity. How are we going to build the top team so that if we get into government, we can actually tackle these big challenges, get those good jobs, get the economy going again, finally stop the small boats, no messing around? And how can we have detailed, credible, comprehensive plans so that the public can have faith in us that it's not going to be just the same failure as this government has been, and frankly, the last Conservative government was as well.
So there you have it. So in case you ever think our government is completely screwed up, all you really got to do is look across the pond to find out, that theirs doesn't really seem to be much better. Despite everything they try to say to us about how much better their government is, they can't get anything done either. So I don't know. So we got to talk about this on the way out the door. We are again on our way to a government shutdown. It looks like the Dems again are trying to keep their little 10-point Christmas list going to try to do something about ICE. Moving to a judicial warrant rather than an administrative warrant would make it impossible for ICE to do their jobs. So, of course, that's what they want. We do have to talk about this real quick. I touched on this earlier. So this is part of their wish list. Remember this. But apparently now that they're getting that part of their wish list, shall we say, the whiplash has been entertaining at best. This is from Nick Arama and came out just about an hour ago. So remember how it was only about a week ago that the Democrats were losing their minds over the DHS part of the funding bill? One of the things they wanted was to have body cams on ICE agents. It was the only, pardon me, it was the only one of the ideas that made any sense and wasn't ridiculous. So the DHS immediately went along with it. Now here's Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer saying how important these body cams are while attacking Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. And again, we have a clip, so we're going to get this queued up. One moment.
Yesterday, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, who for some reason still has a job, she should have been fired long ago, announced that all federal immigration agents in Minneapolis are going to begin wearing body cameras. I want to be very clear about something. Kristi Noem does not get participation points by saying agents are going to start doing something they should have done all along. We need to pass legislation. We know how whimsical Donald Trump is. He'll say one thing one day and retract it the next. Same with Secretary Noem. So we don't trust some executive order, some pronouncement from some cabinet secretary. We need it enshrined into law.
We need it enshrined into law, but now here's the other shoe. But once DHS said that they were going to immediately start using them, then that's when suddenly the Democrats realized there was a problem. That was too much transparency, according to Politico. A push to put body cameras on ICE agents has Democrats running headlong into a new problem, fear that the technology will provide another avenue for mass surveillance of protesters. Congressional Democratic leaders have made universal use of body cameras one of their prime demands for imposing accountability on immigration and customs enforcement agents, especially after federal agents fatally shot two American citizens in Minneapolis. But after an outcry from privacy advocates that surveillance tools will allow ICE agents to identify and track protesters, Democrats have suddenly changed their tune because now they're calling for restrictions on how the body cameras can be used. Lawmakers and legal observers have accused ICE of leveraging a variety of cameras to surveil protesters, feeding pictures into license plate readers and facial recognition systems. Democrats now worry that the body cameras they're demanding could be used for similar purposes. Well, you were just demanding them. Now you're complaining that it's mass surveillance. And here's another clip. Hang on.
Yeah, Bill, good morning to you. You said it best. Here we go again. Congress only has until the end of the day on Friday to figure out some sort of a deal here when it comes to this DHS funding. And that's really starting to look like more and more of a long shot at this point because Democrats are digging in on their demands that ICE either be reformed or defunded.
Too many women have been dragged by their hair through the street. We've seen a 6-year-old child fighting stage 4 cancer deported, so we're not going to give them another penny.
And Fox News has confirmed that Senate Democrats have sent legislative text on a DHS spending plan to their Republican counterparts. Now, last week, you'll remember Chuck Schumer announced a list of 10 demands for ICE reforms. That includes judicial warrants, body cams, and end to roving patrols, forcing ICE agents to unmask, and also forcing them to carry and show ID. Well, the Senate's top Republican negotiator on that DHS bill, Senator Katie Britt, slammed those demands, writing in part, quote, Democrats' newest proposal is a ridiculous Christmas list of demands for the press. This is not negotiating in good faith, and it's not what the American people want. Other Senate Republicans point out that shutting down DHS will hurt TSA, FEMA, and the Coast Guard a whole lot more than it'll hurt ICE. And they say some of the Democrats' demands are non-starters.
The request that we should put ICE agents in harm's way is absolutely intolerable. And again, the Democrats need to get serious.
And at least one Senate Democrat believes a partial government shutdown is all but certain.
I absolutely would expect that it's going to shut down. I know that the Democrats, we provided, I think it was 10 kinds of basic things. And then the Republican pushed back quickly saying that that's like a Christmas wish list and that they're non-starters.
So, Bill, this is interesting. One of the main demands we've been hearing from Democrats is they want ICE to wear body cameras, and Republicans are okay with that. But now Democrats are saying they're worried those body cameras will be used to surveil or spy on anti-ICE protesters or track them in some way. So now Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are saying they want restrictions on how those ICE body cameras will be used. We'll be keeping tabs on all of it this week. We'll send it back to you.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see how that last debate point works out or not. Thank you, Bill. Nice to see you on the Hill.
Yep.
Dana.
Thanks.
So there you have it. Now that they're getting what they said they wanted, now they don't necessarily want what they said they wanted. Is anybody else surprised? I know I'm not. All right, folks. I know I normally do 2 hours on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays now, but I am still trying to recoup from a whole host of the various viruses and other crap that I've been exposed to over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to cut this one a little bit short. I'll be back tonight for America Off the Rails starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, as long as my voice and everything holds out. I actually feel pretty good today. I have this bad habit of, as soon as I start feeling better, jumping back in full steam ahead, and then by the end of the week, I've driven myself back to barely being able to do anything again. So we're doing a slow spin up this time. I'm going to try things a little bit differently. I'm going to try to act my age a little bit more. We're going to go back in a little more slowly, cut back on the workload a little bit, but still try to get some stuff done for this week. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us today. I know it's Monday. I know I would say it's been dreary, but honestly, I've been kind of bummed because for the last couple of days, I felt like crap, and it's been really, really nice. I'm like, dude, I want to go outside. I want to go outside. Anyway, so I may actually do that for a little bit today. Yeah, and a little sunshine will probably help. But we're going to get out of here. Again, my name is Rick Robinson. This is my show. Again, we do this thing every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at noon Eastern time now. I'll be back tonight for America Off the Rails. Bye, everybody.
Say goodnight, Gracie.